Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another video. We're going to go over a feature that may not be in 7.42, but like I said, I'm dealing with 7.46, and this is a great feature. I hope Cisco does not get rid of this feature in upcoming software versions. I know 7.7 is coming out pretty soon, but we're going to talk about templates. Now, I did in my last video kind of hinted at what templates are or why templates are so fun. This video, we're actually going to get into it and see what, templates are all about. Remember, this is 7.6. It may not be 7.42 or whatever subversion they got, 7.42.1 or something like that. So let's log in here. We've all seen the screen, so I don't have to go over what FMC is. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to go to Device and Template Management. Now, before I click on this, the one thing you do have to do for your template is you do need to make sure you have an access control policy. So we go in here to policies here, we go access control policy. You will see that in my INET based policy set, I have, let's see here, I'm going to actually move me out the way because I'm kind of in the way here. Let's see if I can move out the way. Let's go up here somewhere. All right, I am now out the way here, and you will see a ICPR ACP INET template, which is going off of my internet-based policy. So go in here now, and you see that right now, no target devices are there. All right, so we have no target devices here. Now if I go in here, this is based off my template or my template, template. So we still have our base stuff. This is our trusted app stuff for our trusted applications, trust rule, obviously. And then we have our default INET rule down here, which is just LAN and WAN and stuff like that. All right. Now, of course, this isn't tied to anything, so don't worry about it yet because I haven't given it a device. So now, go to device and go to device templates. So what device templates allow you to do is pretty much get rid of a lot of the initial setup. Now, there's certain things you still need to apply, right? What you can do is an access control policy. You can configure the device that you're going to do this template for, the interfaces and stuff like that, but you can't do anything else, right? So you can't do platform settings, you can't do NAT rules or anything like that. All that stuff has to be applied after the device has got the initial template, right? So you can't templatize everything, unfortunately. So the key thing here in this template, now I would name it the device that you're actually going to use, right? Because unless you use the same model and it's going to be the same interfaces and all that stuff, I would kind of create a template and just be, you'll have to use variables and stuff like that so you can change certain parameters like interface, IP, and stuff like that. Excuse me. So right now I don't have devices assigned to this, and it has that INET template there. Now the one thing, excuse me, the one thing that I'm a little worried about here is what if you're using a management data interface, right? Because you're going to do the template. I want to make sure that if I do a management data interface, that will not disrupt communication, because you disrupt the communication. And let's say that firewall is all the way out in Kansas City somewhere. Well, now you need smart hands and reconfiguring and stuff like that. But I believe this should still work even if you're doing a management data interface. So let's take a look at what the template actually looks like. So we go in, we create your template. The first thing you need to do is go to template settings. So your template settings looks like your device settings in the normal way. So you've probably seen this screen before. I usually turn on auto rollback and application bypass or automatic application bypass. I haven't explained what automated or intelligent application bypass is, but just if you want to know what that is, just let me know in the comments. Then you have your model mapping. So this is very important because you have to tell this template what device this template is for. So if I were to edit this, you see all these interfaces that I created, and you see up the top, I said the device model for this template is a Cisco Secure Firewall 3140. All right, and obviously I cannot change it. All right, can't change it right now, but this tells you, hey, this template is for this type of firewall with these interfaces in it. Right. Now, if I had 16 interfaces, I would need to go back and have 16 interfaces in here. So now that that's done and the mapping is valid, now we can go to template parameters. So your template parameters are a network object that you can use for overrides. I did explain what an override is. It allows you to use the same network object with different variables in it. So you can say your LAN interface or your LAN subnet at site A is 10.1.1.0/24, but if it's on firewall B at site B, it's 10.1.2.0/24. So that's what your network overrides are, and these are your variables that you can kind of use in your template. I haven't assigned any variables yet, so don't worry about that. So then your general rule, you already seen that. Now the cool thing about this is if you can actually templatize your VPN as well. So if I went to VPN now, right now there's no VPNs assigned to this, but if I wanted to assign a VPN that I already created for this device, what I would do is say add VPN connection. Now this is great for something like route-based style VPNs. It doesn't really matter what VPN you create because it's going to take the VPN that you create in the site-to-site VPN section and they can call it in here. So if I hit add connections, what VPN topology you want? As you see, I have my two for my last video when I was doing route-based style VPNs and I was doing the umbrella SIG. It took these two. Now, this is already assigned to other firewalls. Can't really do that. But if I was going to take this topology, if I was to create another VPN topology and assign it to a firewall, then I can just go in here and say, okay, this firewall is going to use this VPN template that I created in the site-to-site VPNs. Real cool way to build site-to-site VPNs super quick based on this template, because all it's going to do is take that VPN template or VPN configuration, add to the template, and when everything gets added to the firewall and this template is applied to the firewall, it will just automatically spin up a site-to-site VPN. I'm telling you right now, use route-based for this. Route-based is a lot easier. It's up that route-based style VPN, and then your VPN's up and running. You don't have to worry about, hey, we got to do this now after the fact. If we're talking about order of operations, old school guy like me would like to, hey, let's get the interface template, let's get basic connectivity up and running, and it's just manually create the VPN. But this gives you an option to actually do that as well as push the other device template information to it. DHCP looks like normal DHCP. You can figure DHCP stuff here. When the firewall is assigned to this template, it'll just grab all this information. Routing is your typical routing stuff, just like you see in normal device management. Now here I did some ECMP stuff, so I would have two main interfaces that are going to be logically bound into one, and then I can go out of either interface for internet-based firewalls. I would only do ECMP on internet-based firewalls, something that needs to have anything inbound, or something that is like a VPN firewall or something like that. I wouldn't do ECMP for that. I can configure EIGRP, which I did here. This is the distribution. And there are my static routes here. Right. So what would technically happen when this template is pushed to the firewall? The interfaces would come up, the static routing, all that would come up. EIGRP would come up. It would redistribute the quad zeros so that it'd be an external route down to the core. If I had DHCP was there. If I added VPN to it, then a VPN would spin up to my data center or wherever I had the VPN. If I didn't have an SD-WAN backend, and then obviously you need to test to make sure traffic is flowing in its correct So inline sets, I have not gone into inline sets of what they are, but they are, and I'm going to be careful saying this is, I know Cisco's going to say, hey, don't say that, but don't say our competitor here. But basically, what an inline set is a virtual wire on a Palo Alto. So you know what a virtual wire is, then you know what an inline set is. Now it's configured a little bit differently on the FTD, but it allows you to now do a quote-unquote transparent firewall or bumping the wire on a routed mode firewall without telling it to go to transparent mode. All right, because you go to transparent mode, you can't go to routed mode without wiping all configurations. That's what happens when you change the firewall mode. So to avoid that, you still have it in routed mode. You can create these things called inline sets. The inline sets acts like a bump in the wire, and then you can just send traffic through, and on the same subnet, you just send traffic through there, and it looks like a bump in the wire. You can still do your IPS and all that good stuff there. So I did not create any inline sets, but if you want to get more detail about inline sets, I can create a video about inline sets and what they look like. I did show you in the lab that we had a transparent firewall. I could technically change that to a routed firewall and just do an inline set from there. In fact, I think I'm going to do that instead of just doing a transparent firewall. I'll just make it an inline set, and you can see the layer 2, quote unquote, transparent firewalling without using a transparent firewall. And then your interface configurations are the interface configurations that you're going to apply to the device. So remember, it was a 3140 that I had, and I said, okay, it has 8 interfaces. That depends on how many interfaces you have. If you had 16 interfaces, which I don't know if it even comes with 16 interface modules, but let's say you had 8, well, then you have to create the 8 interfaces. Now, when you create this initial template, you're only going to have 3 interfaces, right? You're going to have management, ETH1, and ETH2. You got to create all the other ones. And how you do that is you add a physical interface here. When you click add physical interface, it's going to say what slot is this in. So normally this is your network model. And then what's the port? So slot 1, port 1. That's basically how that reads. And you can go all the way up to, I believe, 16. Yeah, you can go all the way up to 16. And then when you add those interfaces, they show up here. All right. Now, this goes back to this template setting where you have to map the module. Because if I did 16 interfaces and it would show up here, and I would have to map it, right? It would show all the mappings here. As you can see, WAN 1, WAN 2, and LAN is mapped to 1, 2, and 3, and I have these open ones here. And then after you create all of this, you can create your sub interfaces as well. So all this stuff is still available. Subs, port channels, bridge groups if you're doing transparent firewall. VLAN interfaces if you want to do VLANs on an FTD, but most people don't do VLAN interfaces. Virtual tunnel interfaces, which is your VTIs, and your loopback interfaces, which are great if you're doing dual home, if you're doing dual internet, route-based style VPNs, and you want to have reachability regardless of an interfaces. Then you can say, I'm going to make a publicly facing loopback, and then my VTIs are going to be based on those loopbacks. So now it doesn't really matter how I get there, right? I'm just trying to get to the loopback. So if you're doing BGP, you advertise that loopback out to each respective service provider, and then you can get it to service provider 1 or service provider 2. You know, if service provider 2 goes down, you still go through service provider 2 without worrying about traffic issues or a blip in traffic because you're trying to get to the interface and not the loopback. Now, if the loopback goes down, that means the entire device goes down, because loopbacks don't go down unless you manually shut them down or the device just blew up on you. So now that after all that's done, now again, this is only a subset of things that you can assign to the firewall, because you can't do platform settings, stuff like that. You go to associate device. Now your device obviously has to be connected to the FMC. You can't do this without having it connected to the FMC. So then you go apply the template, you pick the template you want, and then you would pick a device. Now, one of these devices were a fresh device that I only had management to. I would just pick one of that device and then hit apply. And then it'll push out the template I just created. Why is this such a great feature? Because it kind of allows you to build, well, not kind of allows, it makes you can build a template per device, and you don't have to manually do the configurations over and over and over and over as you add new devices to your FMC. This kind of streamlines configuration from just, initial configurations and getting it up and running. So you can just apply the template. Variables are changed based on the variables that you put in there. And then, okay, site A has the same firewall, site B has the same firewall, site D has the same firewall. Okay, well, all I need is management, and I'll push the template out, and then bam, I'll start applying the template, and variables are changed, and then they're up and running. So it streamlines your firewall deployment like drastically, right? No more manual configuration. Again, if you can develop things where you don't have to have a lot of manual configuring involved, then you reduce the amount of mistakes that could be made when someone deploys it, right? Especially, like I said in other videos, people decide to grow a brain and say, I'm going to configure this firewall differently than the other ones. And now we got to, play whack-a-mole again and try to figure out what is going on. Why was this configured this way versus this way? And I run into that a lot when I do firewall assessments. The person that's there usually tells me, hey, I wasn't there when this was deployed, so I can't really answer that question. Well, that eliminates this if you start using templates, because then all you have to do is know the template, and hey, this configuration was based on our template. Now, if someone goes in there and messes with the template, that's a totally different story. But this reduces the likelihood of things being misconfigured wrong. Now, I'm saying from a initial configuration setup, you can still mess up on platform settings, IPS settings, malware settings, decryption settings, DNS settings, um, backups. You can mess with a whole lot of stuff. And then if you need a firewall assessment because you just got your FTDs aren't working like you thought they were going to work, or if you're a Cisco rep and account manager and your clients complaining to you about platform because they just deployed it wrong, that's 99%. It was just deployed wrong, and you need to get an assessment to validate the configurations and stuff. There'll be a link in the description below. Let's talk so we can actually save your relationship with the client, because 9 times out of 10 you don't want to get to the point where they're automatically ripping it out or getting ready to rip it out, because at that point it's too late. So this was interface templates in the FMC. This is 7.6. Again, this may or may not be in 7.42, which last time I checked was the gold standard image. If this was informative, don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. I really like that you guys are giving me a lot of questions. Again, you keep my brain working and coming up with new stuff every day to answer, and I really, really appreciate it. This is Don from Firewall Technologies. Thank you, and have a nice day.